Welcome to your world with Prakash Kapila. In this episode, we will do we'll decipher the most important thing that is happening around the world right now. And that is with respect to the Ukraine crisis and what Russia is up to and how this crisis is going to play out and who are the players and what do we do about it. So, to give a brief, there are few players, and all the crises happen because of some politician thinks about some gains and some losses. Mitigate the losses. Mitigate means reduce the losses that they have. So, who are the players in the present scenario? There are multiple players, but major among them is Biden, Anthony Blinken, Lavrov, who is the Russian counterpart for Blinken, and Putin, of course, and Zelensky, and the people of Russia and the people of the Ukraine, and not to mention the political imbalances back in the United States. So for any thing that happens, there is always a series of things that happened before. So what mathematicians call this as a Brownian motion. Like you take you take one step at a time and you reach a particular goal. So if you want to go to some point X, you take some series of points to reach a point X. Say you want to go to school or you want to go to college, you take a particular turns or specific turns on the path. So that is the turn. That is called the Brownian motion. So one step follows the other, one step, the other follows the other, like this. So in this particular scenario, we have come to a particular scenario where there is a lot of stalemate happening, where there is a lot of Cold War kind of scenarios happening. And these are not by accident. These are pre-planned and these are of a highest caliber. So what is the present situation? Simply put, present situation is Russia wants to pressurize Ukraine, and US wants to pressurize Russia. So there is always a political game. There is always a political strategy behind a country's move towards whatever. So if a soldier is doing something, they're not doing it by their own fancy. They're doing it because of a pre-calculated moves that have been well thought out by hundreds of analysts, right? So if Russia is doing something, then obviously at least some 100 analysts may have thought about all the consequences and presented before Putin, and Putin is taking it. So let's examine the present scenario and let's see what the eventualities are. So let's take Biden first, right? So what are the stakes for Biden? Why is Joe Biden so much into this particular thing right now? So to give a brief, the Biden is in this position because, as we said, there are previous positions that Biden may have taken that led to Biden confronting the situation or creating the situation that he is in. So what were the situations? One, a disastrous foreign policy on Afghanistan, a disastrous pullover from Afghanistan that actually reduced the political capital of Biden to the lowest ebb. Only Trump is the guy who is lower than Biden right now in popularity. Why is this so important? Why is a popularity of a president so important for the president, right? So this comes to the second point, that a president of United States is not the whole and soul. There is a Congress and there is a Senate. So anything that a president proposes, the Senate and Congress disposes, right? They have to ratify all the actions that president take in various shape or form. The president can't just hire someone. They have to be ratified by Congress and the Senate. And more the popularity of the president, the easier it is for the president to be able to move the bills that he or she is proposing. So there is a lot dependent on the reputation of the president to make things work. For example, even if Bill Clinton didn't have majority in Congress, but still he was able to move the Congress towards his policies because he had the people's mandate. He had the people's well-wishers, and the economy was booming. His popularity was sky high. So is Barack Obama. His popularity was very high, and when he came up with new healthcare bill and all those things, there was not a huge resistance that the other parties were putting up. But cut that and come to Biden, his own party people are not fully behind him. There are a few senators who don't buy into his ideas. There are a few Congress people who don't buy into his ideas. So he has to sell his ideas. He has to sell his bills to the Congress and the Senate. So for which he needs the popularity to be on the sky high. And even if not on the sky high, at least on the above average level. So right now, his bills are stuck. His nominations are stuck in Senate, and most of the Congress people are coming out with their own bills. Senate is coming out with their own bills. So there is a lot of imbalances happening, and Biden needs to steward those things. And right now, his popularity is very low. So there is a heavy impetus on Biden to take the first mover advantage, so his popularity will increase. So he's in a very sweet spot. He created a very good sweet spot. What is that sweet spot? That is Russia, right? So if he is able to nudge Russia, the impact will be on China. See, China and Russia are two big superpowers that everybody is trying to figure out what to do with them, whether it's NATO, EU, or anything, any other bloc. They're all afraid of China's economic power. They are all afraid of Russia's military power. So they need a counterbalance, and US is the biggest counterbalance for this to happen. So therefore, everybody wants US to take a step ahead and ensure that these two powers are curtailed. And at the same time, US can't do anything by itself. So it has to rally the people, rally the other countries around it. And Putin has given a very good opportunity for Biden, and Biden has lapped up that opportunity like anything. So to give you a brief, now we'll go to the Putin. Why is Putin playing the war games that he's playing right now? So what is the advantage Putin gets? So for example, in the world scenario, the more the country's influence is on the world scenario, the better your exchange rate are, the better your currency rate is, and a simple change in currency rate will actually fill the coffers of the treasury of each country. Even by just a 10% change in the currency, you are looking, it directly impacts the GDP of that country. So therefore, the higher the level of the strategic level of the country, the higher the influence the country has, the higher the currency arbitration they have. So what are the strengths of Russia? What are the strengths of Putin, right? Putin now is Russia. So why, let's look at Putin as such. So why is Putin doing this at this time, at this stage, right now? Why is he doing that? So if you take a step back and see where is Russia now and where it was around 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, or 2 months ago, you don't see much difference, right? So whenever there was a popularity contest in Russia, Russia invaded other country, like Georgia. When Bush Jr. was president, Russia invaded Georgia, and Russia moved its tanks in Georgia, but it came back. So therefore, when it invaded Georgia, the NATO said, "You are not." NATO pushed him out of the club. So now, since NATO pushed him out of the club, now Putin is on one side and the NATO is on the other side. There is a huge antagonism between them, but they don't want to fight with each other. They want to influence each other, right? So influence is you're making NATO do things that you like. And NATO wants to influence Russia to make it do things that they like. Why? Because everything is directly related to their day-to-day lifestyle. There is a gas pipeline. The Russia has got a lot of oil resources that it is giving to the Europe. And Europe needs those oil resources. So you have this demand supply, and there is a price mechanism between this demand supply. When the supply is constrained, right? When the supply is constrained, then the demand, which is constant, will see that prices will rise, right? The supply is there, the demand is there, but the supply is being pushed inside. So what will happen? The prices will rise, right? The price between supply and demand, the price is the stability factor. If the demand or supply fall, if the demand falls and supply is there, then the price decreases. If the demand is increasing and the supply is decreasing, then the prices rise. So when there is a lot of commotion, then oil is the one thing that people want to put it in the reserve. So they will buy a lot of oil. So the demand is increasing, whereas the supply is being constant. Who is keeping this constant? One is Russia, the other one is Saudi Arabia, right? These two are keeping the oil reserves on a constant basis, so that the price mechanism is existing. So Russia has got a lot of influence in the oil market. It can dump oil, or it can pull off the oil, and a lot of countries will face a lot of problems. So having said that, there are other countries that have oil. So oil is not only with Russia, it's there with Iran, it's there with Libya, it's there with Azerbaijan, it's there as a shell. So if Russia pulls out, there is a provision for US to allow Iran oil, allow the shale being drilled more, make the Saudi Arabia do more oil pushing, oil drilling into the market. So it's not like if Putin brings down the oil, whole of the market will die down. It's not that scenario anymore. It used to be like that around, a few years ago, but US shale producing has increased, and there's a lot of automation happening in manufacturing sector so that they can ramp up the production very easily. So having a very limited, but there is a strength, but the strength is limited till a certain extent. After that, the power of oil power that Russia has will come down. So keeping that in view, there is a room for Putin to play, but there's not a whole lot of room. It's not like 1971, where the oil reserves were pulled out and the oil prices shot up like anything in US. So US is a market that can take all the oil, and then a lot of other countries will not be left with any oil. So you don't want that to happen. You don't want US to buy all the oil. You want US to not buy any oil, so that the oil is flowing across the world easily. So that is the concern. So why is Putin doing this right now? Is the most important question. Well, I try to analyze this from an outsider. I don't know Putin, I don't know Russia, I don't know the strategies there, but there is a logical stance of why Putin is doing this. So for that, we have to go little 1 year behind or 2 years behind, and you will see there is a lot of, anti-Putinism going on in Russia. Alexei Navalny who had been poisoned by Russian authorities. That's what Britishers say. He's back into Russia. So there is a lot of public opinion against Putin in Russia. Right? There is a lot of public against him. Why? Because of anti-incumbency. Simple anti-incumbency is there. There's a lot of monopoly, and there's only one person governance. All those things make Putin as equal as a monarch. And wherever there is a monarch, there is bound to be a lot of anti-sentiments against them. So what will happen is, what's happening is a lot of opposition is being formed in Russia. And if you go a little bit further behind, then the Lenin, right? When Lenin was first becoming the head of the state, he didn't have that much power. Okay. So, but a lot of people had antagonism. They came to streets, and then they found that Lenin was leading on top of the voice, and everybody coalesced towards Lenin. And the Tsar's rule, like hundreds of years of Tsar's rule, gone like this. So every guy who is in the power in Russia knows this thing, that you can't allow Russians to, the common citizens, to come in one street. You have to occupy that space in their mindset. So for the positives for Putin was, after the Soviet downfall, the Soviet broke up, there was a lot of economic downturn for Russia, and they had to sell a lot of things, and their prestige and power fell like anything. So everybody knows about this. So only after Putin came, he used orthodox methods that KGB used. Therefore, he was able to keep the vast lands of Russia without getting sliced up. So Russia is very huge, and the Soviet Union had Russia as the biggest component. But there are other countries like Poland, Uzbekistan, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Azerbaijan, Ukraine, of course, and Georgia. All those countries were first annexed by Russia during the Soviet regime. Not much of Poland, but USSR had, Soviet Russia had a lot of influence in Poland and East Germany. Federal FDR, I think, Federal FRGF, Federal Republic of Germany. So they had a lot of influence in these countries, and they had a lot of hegemony over these countries. They could tell who was going to be the president, who was going to be the police chief also. So like that, they had a lot of hegemony. And the same hegemony Putin played on Ukraine during Poroshenko and the rulers prior to Poroshenko. So what happened? Now we go into the Ukraine public. So why is it that Ukraine don't like Russia, right? Why inherently Ukraine hates Russia? What will happen if Ukraine and Russia can go together? Simple answer is there will be a lot of hegemony from Putin, and to show to the domestic audience that Russia is more powerful, Putin has to subjugate. Putin has to move his power so that he can occupy the space within the Russians that Russia is becoming a power. Russia is a power to reckon with. So as soon as your country is gaining more power, obviously the leader will have more say on that. And therefore, Mr. Putin is going to have a lot of say on the bills and the elections, perceived elections that he can show to others. So all in all, he is a ultimate authority of Russia right now, and he wants to maintain that right now status to as much in future as possible. And mind you, Putin is a very lavish person. He has like 300 palaces for himself. He's been in these palaces for like 15 years. He saw Bush, he saw Barack Obama, he saw Trump, now he's seeing Biden. He's like 4 or 5 presidents, or he saw that. So he's like 20 years, 25 years, he's in the power. And he wants to continue that for another 20 years if it is possible. And he's a warrior, healthy, from health point of view, he can continue. So he wants to keep the power co-located in one place. So that is his strength, and that is his weakness. So we'll come to the weakness later. The strength is he has to show the power to the Russians so that they understand that he is doing good for Russia. Whether he's doing good for himself, but in that process, Russia is also becoming stronger. So therefore, the heart and minds of people is not to overthrow him. That's what he wants, because Russia is a very, very, very volatile country when it comes to overthrowing regimes. It just happens like this. The czars were thrown like anything. Stalin was able to keep the power for a long time, but as soon as he died, then a lot of people turned against him, right? He was not given the kind of farewell that you think would be given to leaders who have done for like 20 years or 30 years. So all in all said, every leader in Russia understands that if people come together, if people come to the streets, it is easy to overthrow them. The army changes their flags very quickly. We have seen that with Boris Yeltsin when he had gone with Gorbachev. Within like 15 days, the whole of Soviet Russia fell like this. 15 days. So that is the power of Russians to change their country. Right? They do it very, very easily. And therefore, you have to occupy their mindset. You have to be in their hearts and minds. Otherwise, you can't be a leader, and you have to show your power. So that's why a lot of political opponents of Putin have not been able to rise as much as any other democratic country would hope for. So having said that, now let's move to Ukraine. So why is Ukraine on the loggerheads with Russia? Why does it want to join with NATO, right? It's been there for a long time for them to join NATO. So before Zelensky, there was Poroshenko, and what happened was Poroshenko was more pro-Russian. That's what people thought, right? It's all about thinking, okay? Whether someone is pro-Russian or not pro-Russian is immaterial. If people think you're pro-Russian, you're pro-Russian. That's it, done. This is politics, okay? Welcome to the political world where perception is reality. So a lot of people perceived that he was pro-Russian and they overthrew it. And why is such antagonism against Russia? Because they have seen from centuries that a powerful Russia is disadvantageous for them. They won't get the opportunities that they were having. They don't have the freedom. So during Soviet Union, right, Edward Shevardnadze was the foreign minister, and he had to toe the line of Gorbachev. If Gorbachev says something, he had to say the same thing. So Kiev was like a second-grade city, and Ukrainians felt they were like second-grade citizens in the Soviet Russia. So as soon as there was some weakening of things happening, they just moved out. Ukraine was the first country to say we are independent. Like Shevardnadze was the first guy to say that Ukraine is independent, we don't want to be with Russia, being as a foreign minister, right? So he just resigned and he said Ukraine is going to be part of Russia. So from that time onwards, whether it's Latvia, Estonia, Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, Ukraine, Georgia, all of them, they hate Russia. They want to be away from Russia as much as possible, because if you allow Russian president to be friendly with you, he's going to eat you up. That is the political compulsion of the Russian president and the political compulsion of the presidents of the other countries, right? Poroshenko was removed like this. Even within weeks, he was removed. So there were a lot of, corruption charges. And if you take a look at the videos, Ukrainians actually took the minister who was involved in corruption and threw him into the dustbin, right? I mean, Ukrainians, Uzbeks, Kazakhs, these are all a tribal kind of lineage they have, like Mongols, Tartars, Uzbeks, Kazakhs, Turks. They were all, quarreling tribes. And most of the Tatars are Ukrainians. Mongols and Tatars together have combined into Russia and other places, but Ukraine's, a lot of Tatars settled into the Ukraine's land near Ukraine. So there is a lot of antagonism between all of them, right? And they don't trust each other so quickly. And they want their country to move forward. So therefore, as soon as there was Zelensky came into power, he wanted to move. Even before Zelensky, the Ukraine wanted to move out of Russia into the NATO. NATO at that time, and still now, doesn't want a lot of people to come in, because they have this immigration problem, and they have this quarreling thing that they need to take care of. Actually, allowing Turkey to enter into NATO made a lot of noise within the NATO, that there is a lot of quarrel between the Turks and its other tribes. So all in all, we have a situation where there is a stalemate, and Biden has taken the first mover advantage, and now he's pushing Putin that there will be a lot of repercussions. So Putin has very limited leverage with respect to oil, and if there is a shift, we will come into the sanctions later on. But for right now, the sanctions on Russia means sanctions on the people who fund Putin. So that's the whole ball game here. If we take out the money from people who support financially to Putin, then Putin will have very destabilizing political steps, and there will be a lot of opposition in the Russia itself that will then have more power, more financial power to do things. So all in all, Putin Putin is not a. Putin has got more experience than all of these American presidents put together, all of the leaders, European leaders put together, because he's been in the power for like 25 years. He knows the leverage, he knows the strengths, he knows the weaknesses, he can move things around. And Russia is still the world's very big superpower. But if Biden is able to push Putin, then the impact will be on China. Xi Jinping, who is there sitting there trying to nudge US, is now going to see a different US to deal with. And that is for another show. But right now, I don't see this ebbing down. So what you need to do is stay tuned, and we will come back. So this is an ongoing story, unfortunately, and we'll have to give you another episode of the same thing. So for now, there is no war, there is no economic crisis, there is nothing on the ground that is going to hamper you. So stay tuned, keep your buttons pressed, and look for an opportunity of any downturn in your securities and buy them for now. But be very quick, be very nimble. You are going to see a lot of things change. So this is a very good time to be a trader. Okay, thank you, and you have a wonderful week ahead.